G'day, I'm Greg Vinal. Most lure fishermen have very strong views on what colours work best, but many of the popular theories are just hooey. In fact, fish would need to break the laws of nature to see some of the colours that most guys push. And quite often guys become so convinced of the magical qualities of this colour that they'll use it more often and with greater confidence, so it's only natural that they'll catch more fish on it. And of course lure companies want you to believe that colour is very important because they make a lot more money if you feel you need to buy 6 different coloured lures rather than just one. Now, as a lure maker, I spend a lot of time thinking about how to catch more fish on lures, including what colours to paint them. So in this series of videos, I'm going to give a very simplified version of the science behind what fish are actually able to see, and I'll hopefully cut through some of the garbage that you get fed on the subject. This information should be valuable not only to my fellow lure makers, but to anyone who's deciding what lure to buy next, or trying to choose a lure from their tackle box for a specific purpose. Now, objects can look quite different underwater than they do in air, and that's because water changes the way that light behaves, and that in turn affects how colours can be seen or not seen. So let's start with a very simple concept. Let's look at how the intensity of underwater light can change our perception of colour. I'd like you to imagine that this is a tank of ultra-pure seawater, and we're about to drop the 2 lures in the diagram into it. So we're holding the lures at present above the water where they receive 100% of the sunlight. So the colours that we see are 100% intense. Now, light that enters water from above does 2 things when it strikes the water surface. Some gets reflected away and some penetrates into the water. And the light that penetrates into the water also gets absorbed, so the deeper you go into the water, the less light gets down there. So as we immerse the lures into the water, the amount of light is reduced surprisingly quickly. In fact, 25% of the light that hits the water surface is absorbed or reflected away before it gets to a depth of 1 centimetre, or half an inch below the surface. By the time the lures reach a depth of 1 metre, or 3 feet, more than half of the light that was available at the water surface is gone. In fact, only 45% of the light penetrates to this depth, so you can see a significant reduction in the brightness of your colours. If you want to do a home demonstration, try replacing an 80 watt light globe in your lounge room with a 40 watt one and see if that dulls your perception of colours in the room. And consider that this is just 1 metre or 3 feet below the surface. By 10 metres or 30 feet, 78% of the light's been absorbed, leaving only 22% to illuminate the lure. So many of my lures dive much deeper than this, and many commercial ones do as well. And you can see how water depth starts to affect the way that fish will see the lure as you go deeper, and colour just becomes less and less important. To illustrate this better, let's put the lures back simultaneously on the screen for direct comparison. There's quite a difference. Now here's the scary thing that I haven't told you yet. Up until now, we've been talking about what happens in ultra clean water on a dead calm day with the sun directly overhead. Unless you regularly fish a long way offshore in tropical marine environments at midday in perfect weather, you probably won't experience this kind of light penetration. On every other occasion, there's a whole range of factors that reduce light penetration into the water. So for inland waters or nearshore coastal environments, things are very, very different. In these areas, a whole range of things are affecting light penetration, such as plankton growth that can significantly reduce the depth to which light penetrates. Turbidity from dirty water, suspended silt, or even bubbles can reduce light penetration. A dark coloration to the water, which comes with vegetation, can reduce light. And of course, the angle of the sun and the amount of waves and ripples at the water surface also play a very important role. It goes without saying that if you're fishing under overhanging lilies, bridges, or vegetation, that also reduces the light that penetrates the water. And yet, every lure fisherman knows that bass and other species usually lurk in dark, shady areas and bite best during low light periods at dawn and dusk, which is very interesting. Now in part 2 of this video series, we'll look at how specific colours are affected by this phenomenon, but for now the important message is quite simple. The visibility of all colours is affected by water depth, so you'll need a larger selection of colours for shallow clear water fishing in the middle of the day than you'll need for deep water fishing in dirty water at dusk. I hope you take the time to watch the next video in this series when we'll start to explore what colours work best for deep water fishing.